Welcome to Unaccountable, the world's okayest accounting podcast for product news, updates, and more. I am your astonishingly adequate host, Tyler Otto, and I'm joined by the sometimes serviceable Jeremy Van Grohl. Good day to you, sir.
Good day to you as well, and I could not be more excited for this episode. Oh.
I'm pumped because, Jeremy, you and I have built our resumes on people lowering their standards to our level, right? Like, people look at our wives and just think, really, those ladies settled for them? Like, they went down. You look at our employees, they have no right working for us. We should be working for them. And now, one of the greats of all time has come down to our level to grace us with his greatness. The incomparable, the podfather, if you will, David Leary. Welcome to the show.
Wow, what an introduction. I think you're inflating things a little bit, and I would not say I'm coming down as much. You know, this is, we've just been doing it longer. That's all.
Well, you know what? We're taking plenty of pages out of your notebook, plenty of guidance that you've brought our way. And heck, I still can't believe you're even here. Jeremy, like, did you think this day would ever come?
I didn't.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy! We're not worthy! We're scum! We suck!
Well, I'll be honest. I don't get invited to a lot of podcasts because I don't have accounting knowledge, not in the same way, the traditional way, right? I never owned a firm, any of that stuff. Blake gets invited to a lot of podcasts, but this is for me, of course, when you extended the offer of, why would I say no? I'm literally on your homepage.
That's true. You are on our homepage. I didn't think you would come because the first time we talked to you, which was at Intuit Connect, I threw wine at you twice, I think, at the dinner table. I thought for sure that would exclude us, so thank you.
It's all good.
Well, kicking us off this week, Jeremy, I've never done Into News with two people. For either of you, have you guys heard the newest news of what type of tax credit is now transferable? Hint, it will definitely help with some car purchases now.
EV vehicle credit, maybe?
That's what I was going to say, the electric vehicle credit.
Yeah, so tax credits for energy credits are now transferable. Now, there's a whole lot of firms out there that are becoming brokers and helping, with energy products and helping big corporations buy those at a discount and then take the tax savings. But what also now is available is when you buy an electric car, your dealer you can assign the tax credit to them and they can discount the price for you right then and there. No longer you buy the car at 38 grand and then wait to get your 6 grand tax credit a year and a half later. The dealership now can get assigned the tax credit and offer you the car straight up for 32 grand. Think about our clients. This could be huge.
This is real now. Because we went through an electric car purchase about 2 years ago, and I heard dealerships were doing this, but I don't think it was legal.
It was not legit. Okay. This is now legit news. So some of our clients, we all have the construction client that we say, hey, you should pay off your debts. And he's like, no, I'm going to go buy a Rivian. Well, now you can get a little money back.
How do they police this, that they know they're not getting it when they purchase the vehicle and claiming it? Where's the check and balance there?
So it was funny. I was at the Accounting Today forum back in San Diego because they were talking about this on a much bigger scale of how is the IRS going to police this? And essentially, it feels like it's on the honor system right now. So anyone want to sign up for ERC Credit 2.0?
Run and get your EV. Love it.
Yep. David, I'm so excited because we get to run you through Fast Figures today, which have you listened to a few episodes?
I've listened to some episodes of the podcast. Like I said, it's surprisingly listenable, to quote unquote me. And it's been a little while, and I was listening this morning to prep myself to be ready. And honestly, I almost feel like I don't want to be on the show because
you and everybody else.
I'm not going to be able to answer these fast enough. I'm not going to be read at any of them. And I've noticed when you two play, Tyler, especially you, when you don't have the right answer, you just come up with some witty fake answer. And I don't have that skill quick enough. I'm like, this is a mess. I'm going to be the worst guest ever on this show. That's what I'm assuming.
You know what? Only time will tell. Either way, as long as you're memorable, like some have said, there's no such thing as bad press.
That's true. Including, I think I've said that.
Welcome to Fast Figures. 10 questions, 1 minute-ish. All answers are numbers. The game starts now.
Bonus points if you can tell us whose voice that is.
That is Ben from Keeper app.
Yes. You're already getting extra
credit. You're already starting off with a bonus point. All right, let's put 1 minute on the clock. Here we go. Softball question to start you out. What is the minimum number of lines you can have in an accounting journal entry?
2.
Starbucks, who announced that they are currently holding $1.8 billion in customer prepaid balances, receives FDIC insurance on its customer deposits up to what dollar amount?
0.
Since September 2023, the IRS followed up with 1,600 wealthy taxpayers who owe back taxes. How much has the IRS collected since September? Multiple choice: 10 million, 100 million, a billion, or 10 billion?
1 billion.
How many holes of golf in a standard full round?
Ooh, that tricky term, full round. I'm going to say 18, but I wonder if full round's like different.
That's fair. Within 5, how many countries outside the US provide CPA exam testing?
It's 7 now, maybe 8.
In what I would argue is one of the greatest movies of all time, Inigo Montoya is out to seek revenge on the man who killed his father, who has how many fingers on his right hand?
This is so bad. This is embarrassing. It's 3, but maybe 4.
Intuit just implemented a new policy as of July 15th where ACH payments initiated by the payee, the person receiving the money, will now take up to how many business days to process?
I'm going to say they moved it to 1 business day.
According to your website, as of this week, how many episodes, not including bonus episodes, have you recorded of the accounting podcast? As of your website.
We're at 493.
How many strings does a modern cello have?
5.
How many hours of CPE does a CPA need each year?
Approximately 40 to 55, depending on the state.
Well done, sir. How do you feel after that?
I'm sweating. This is scary.
Brutal.
It's stressful, right? You don't think it's as bad as it is till you go through it. Let's recap and get your thoughts on some of this. First question, what is the minimal number of lines you can have in a standard accounting journal entry? You said 2. And well done, sir. Again, another point on the board. Okay, you're not getting a shutout. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Starbucks, who announced that they are currently holding $1.8 billion in customer prepaid balances, receives FDIC insurance on its customer deposit up to what dollar amount? You said 0, and well done. And I bring this up because they act like a bank. They look like a bank sometimes. They are not a bank. And I know several other podcasts have covered this, but I'm curious. Intuit, has already partnered with Green Dot to make their bank, but now they're doing like you can receive your money early and other apps are getting in this game. Like, do you foresee any of the players in our accounting space starting to go after this? I want to hold customer deposits and make money on their money.
You mean when you say players, like apps or firms?
Yep. Ooh, I hadn't even considered firms. Now I want to know.
Wait, I think we've seen both because I mean, a lot of apps, just like apps, there's all these APIs. So you can basically, a lot of apps have already added like expense cards, right? Or prepaid cards or debit cards. It's very easy to do. Yes, almost every app's going to offer their own banking services. It's just a march. It's probably going to happen over and over again. But I cannot remember the firm name, but I swear there's a firm that they're niche, maybe in restaurants, I'm not sure, but they did offer a bank account at the firm, like a firm branded bank account. I just don't know. It's probably been 18 months to 2 years since I think I saw that. But yeah, I think there is an accounting firm offering spend cards and bank account thing.
Really?
This just blows my mind because like Starbucks incentivizes people to put your money there and then spend it a later date. Like it's not like even like Melio who takes your money, sits on it until the check clears. There is a defined amount of time until that's coming out. Where Starbucks just incentivizes you to put your money on there. And then you can even earn Sky Miles points for putting $100 at a time. Do some of the apps we use start incentivizing customers to hold a balance with them just long term. And you're right. Some of them have already made that march. I'm curious if others will do it.
Pluto, I think that they want a little bit more of that Venmo or PayPal where they keep a balance with Pluto. I think they still do that. I'm not sure. I think that was one of their original business models. But Starbucks is funny because I have some tweets, and this is like circa 2011, 2010, just when like e-wallets were coming on. And I remember because this was when Apple Pay was just barely being announced and all of these, which really Microsoft, Google, Apple, they're all going to be the new banks. They're the new Visa and MasterCards ultimately. And then I remember even tweeting out and Starbucks is probably beating them all. And because you would just sit, and even like in Tucson, which is a higher elderly population of retirees, you watch people that I would argue are like not techno savvy all paying with their Starbucks app on their phone. And I'm like, this is like, because if you sit there and work at Starbucks, you really start to observe the Starbucks business model, right? And you're like, everybody's paying with their phone. And this is even a decade ago. And now it adds up. There's a lot of, I have balances at Starbucks, I'm sure. Both of you.
This makes me think about, like, if you were doing Starbucks accounting, like, when do you start, like, chipping away at that balance and taking, like, additional, like, how much of this is going to get, like, surrendered that we can keep that versus them using it? I could feel like that could be an interesting accounting tactic, like almost like a receivables or doubtful account type activity.
Yeah, breakage.
Yeah, right? Like, we can start saying that's ours now.
Dipping into that.
Yeah, right?
Interesting. Next question. Since September 2023, the IRS followed up with 1,600 wealthy taxpayers who owed back taxes. How much has the IRS collected? You correctly said $1 billion, which, way to go, Daniel Warfel and crew. All you had to do was follow up and collect.
And we talked about that on the podcast. So that's why I knew the answer. We just covered this. But the stat I thought was interesting. It was like 1,600 individuals, but it took 1,500 agents. Like, this work is like a 1-to-1 ratio almost, pretty much.
But still, I mean, that tax gap, is 100 and no, it's like 500 billion at this point. And so, yeah, if you think you keep marching down that, I've always been a huge advocate of you never cut your sales department, and the IRS is our revenue generating department. Like, see what happens when you give them money. They're making money.
And this is how you get your viral clip for your show. Talk about the IRS and IRS agents and how they're going to come take all the money. And this is how you get your viral clips.
There you go.
For your
guns
Instagram.
and everything. Like, let's bring that back up from the past. Why not?
Oh, yeah.
Next question. How many holes in a standard round of golf? There's no trick there. It is 18. You're batting perfect so far.
But I think you asked me full round, not standard. I'm so confused.
Well, because you should be, because I'm
difference.
a poor host and I don't word things very well. That's the issue. But, I mean, you're down in Tucson where the retirees are, and you got plenty of golf courses. And while you yourself are not retired, you did retire from what seemed like an entire career at Intuit. You were there 20-something years, right?
22 years, yeah.
I mean, let's face it. Intuit is the Borg here in the U.S. It is the assimilate or perish being. How did that background set you up your career right now, and also your ability to help shape this industry? Because no doubt you and Blake are doing that.
I think in general, and maybe I want to speak to any Gen Zers that might be tuning into your podcast, this huge audience of Gen Zers. But we live in this world, right, of instant gratification, instant success. Yeah. Everything looks to be instant.
Yeah.
Right, if you want to think about it that way. Yeah. And I still insist, most people don't want to do the work. I did 5 years of tech support calls.
Oh, you had to hate your life.
I talked to thousands and thousands and thousands of small businesses for QuickBooks, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of phone calls with accountants. And to this day, every other role I've ever had, either at Intuit or even now that I've left Intuit, it all ties back to stuff I learned doing tech support. Right. Now, I've forgotten a lot. I think I would have argued there was a period of time I got into quality assurance after I did tech support where I arguably could argue I might have known more about QuickBooks than anybody else in the world. I would have easily gone up against anybody. Now I cannot. I've forgotten more about things. I know where I'm dated. I know the menus in QuickBooks Desktop maybe by heart from the olden days, but I could troubleshoot a 941 line by line by heart of like what reports to click on and what fields. But it's just doing the work is what made me successful in all the other stuff. Like everybody wants to come in and be like a senior blah, blah, blah. But nobody wants to put in their 10,000 hours or whatever you want to call it, or whatever that was, 50,000 hours. Right.
And you talk about the technical skills too, but think about the soft skills you got from that, right? Like how to deal with people and, talk people down from very aggravating situations. And I think that is as important, if not more, that you would get in that role.
Intuit, sometimes, QuickBooks or it's accounting and bookkeeping, and people are desperate. And I was on the payroll team, and people can Intuit directly or indirectly can piss people off sometimes. So yes, you get people calling up a little upset, and you have to learn how to just talk to them and listen and get them through the problem. I tended to be more of always operating with the goal of like, how do I get them not to call back? Because I always thought the worst thing anybody could say, hey, Tyler, I called earlier and talked to Jeremy. He was really nice, but basically that means, but he didn't fix my problem.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was always my goal. I don't care if they thought I was nice. I didn't want them to have to call back, which ultimately is the real success.
I love that. No, and I think you're right. Like, you hit the nail on the head that our industry, people want instant overnight success. Jeremy and I, by the time we're 60, we hope this podcast, breaks 10 listeners, but we're ready to put in the time.
How many episodes are you at now? Since you asked me
What is this, 29?
29 or 28? Yeah.
We did 40 weeks before we saw real traction. And then tying back to just me leaving Intuit, that's when we doubled our listeners, because the same day I quit Intuit was the same day Brad Smith resigned from Intuit. Quit instantly. He stole my thunder. I was a little upset.
Oh, man.
I was typing an email to quit, and then everybody starts popping up in their cubes like, oh, and then, yeah. So he sent an email literally when I was typing I'm leaving Intuit email, but then everybody tuned in the podcast to like find out what the story was. So like our listeners like doubled in 1 week. Yeah. Back in October of 2018. So just keep chugging along.
We need to find our Brad Smith moment.
All right, next question. And this is where it might start to go a little downhill. But within 5, how many countries outside the US provide the CPA exam? You said 7. The correct answer is now 18, with the Philippines now offering CPA exam. Like, David, you guys have talked about this plenty, but, we have the shortage here in the US. Everyone's covering it. Is this a solution? Is this, the board's idea of how to fix this?
I mean, there's arguments about this because over here, the reason people aren't going to accounting is because the salaries aren't high enough. This is why they don't want to be CPAs. That's probably the root cause of everything. So instead of fixing that here in the US, let's go get a lot of cheaper people to become CPAs, which would, in theory, keep the salaries down. So it's questionable at best, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it does solve the volume problem, but does it solve the quality and people that want the jobs here in the US? I completely agree. Jeremy, any feedback? Sorry, I felt like I cut you off there.
No, I'm good. Good.
Okay. Next one, and what I would argue is one of the greatest movies of all time, and Diego Montoya is out to seek revenge on the man who killed his father. How many fingers did he have on his right hand? You said 3. He was looking for the 6-fingered man. The 6-fingered man.
This is embarrassing. Please edit this out.
No, this is the good stuff.
All right. As of July 15th, Intuit implemented a new policy, relatively under the radar, might I say, where ACH payments initiated by the payee will now take up to how many days? You said wrong. The answer is now 5. So just to put context, and very clear on this, a lot of us are accountants, and we, through some sort of form, have gotten the bank details of the client in a form that they have authorized us to charge their account. Now, if we now initiate that payment because we manually enter in their info and charge
ACH
the client,
like an ACH pull. Okay.
The payee initiates it. It's a pull. Those went from being 1 to 2 days. Now it's a 5-day due to compliance and risk mitigation. Now, I see where Intuit's at, because if I can enter at bank account details and pull the funds, that does have a bigger risk increase. But at the same point, that's going to upset a lot of accountants, firm owners, other people. Does this open the door for other apps to start stealing their thunder right after they also just remove their cap on ACH fees?
Probably not, because all are going to be subject to this. If you going back to, I know you guys talked about this last episode, the whole Evolve Bank and Trust and Synapse and all this stuff, breaking out on the ex-government agency. I just blanked out, right? Let's just say the feds, all blanking, including FDIC, et cetera. The KYC and this loosey-goosey letting funds move around, they're all just going to keep cranking down on this. They're just, the technology is allowing money to move faster, but it's probably only going to be done when the KYC is really vetted out. And so it's like, I don't necessarily think like, oh, I'll go here because that'll be faster. Well, eventually that'll get cranked down too. Everybody's KYC is going to keep getting tighter and tighter and tighter, because the risk, the companies themselves have risk, but the bigger risk is getting in trouble with the feds for lacking
But I think this
controls.
is valuable. Like, this could be our clip right here, just because so many people are angry that I've seen in a lot of the forums, and they're like, where else can I go now? They're ready to dump because they don't want to wait 5 days for their ACH polls.
I don't know. You see his post every year. I've actually done that on our podcast. I'll read the reactions in a forum and then I have to tell Blake, oh, that was from the last time they did price. This is the Facebook post from 3 years ago when they changed the price $5. I don't know. There's always that fire and brimstone, and people figure it out.
But you contend this is legitimate, not a money grab for Intuit to be able to be that pseudo bank like Starbucks, we said, where you're holding the funds longer and can get some return on that.
To sit on the funds, I don't think it's a money grab to sit on the funds like the float.
Yeah.
It could be a money grab when they offer, well, if you don't wait the 5, you can get it in one day, it's $10. That's when, yes, it's a money grab.
Right.
Like, I could see that, right?
All right, that's
Next question. According to your website, as of this recording, how many episodes, not including bonus episodes, have you recorded of the accounting podcast? You said 493. And David, I know you know your stuff, but it's 393. But you know, I like that you round up, man.
It
Way to
feels
go.
like 493.
Okay,
Blake loves to hear that.
Yeah, but my question about this is, you guys, that's some staying power. That is, I mean, let's face it, Jeremy and I, we both believe the accounting podcast, what was formerly known as the Cloud Accounting Podcast. I should have worn my shirt. But the Cloud Accounting Podcast, like, that was the OG. That was the one that got us all really into the industry. And like, how have you guys had this staying power and the ability to keep doing it and grow this, like you and Blake?
It's a combination of a couple of things. First off, I'm a little older. I'm Gen Z. Blake's, what do they call it? Those millennials that are kind of on that high-end millennial, right? He's kind of on the high end. But Blake one week wanted to skip. He was like, I want to skip this week. I just don't feel like it, you know? And I was like, if we skip, we'll skip next week and this whole thing's dead. And we didn't skip and we've never skipped since. And so most of the success is just doing it every single week. You know, it started out going in the closet and it was, you know, very trying to say everything perfectly. And it's evolved over time, right? And it's definitely now feels like work a little bit. Right. As you do it more and more and more, the pre-prep feels stressful. The mornings we do record or feel stressful. After you're done recording, you're kind of spent. Like it's mentally exhausting because we live stream now and we have to, like, you got to kind of be on. But over and over again, when Blake hit that record button and we just start going, it's totally fun. Like you take all this stuff out of it, showing up and just doing the recording and interacting and talking about the stuff is still perfectly enjoyable, just as it was forever ago.
To your credit, I remember when you were recording from Italy, like you or was it Italy, France?
I was in Italy at a hotel. Yeah, we've recorded everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to you. And honestly, I think that's the reason Jeremy and I have even just lasted 1 year, is neither of us wants to be the one to let the other one down. I think if either of us were doing this solo, it would have fallen apart already.
But I love to hear that the honeymoon phase is still there, right? Like that it's still fun, because I still have that every time. Is like, yes, you get the work in there, and like sometimes it goes to the 11th hour and you're stressed out a little bit. But once we turn it on and just get to banter, like I'm having a good time every time still.
Yeah, exactly.
Second to last question, how many strings does a modern cello have? And I had to search this, and it says like there's a modern cello. The correct answer was 4, not 5. I bring this up because your partner in crime, Blake, started his career as a music major and a cello aficionado. I'm curious, how did this partnership start?
So Blake went to school to be a musician. Then he wound up at Starbucks, you know, building the Starbucks bank, mixing coffee, selling gift cards. I don't know. So he wound up at Starbucks and realized like, oh, I can't make a living as a musician. And I don't know, and this is where maybe you have to bring Blake on as a guest, but somewhere along the line, he somehow, at the theater he was at, somehow got exposed to QuickBooks. And then he started then he went back to school, became an accountant. And then he, just like a lot of listeners are probably QuickBooks Pro advisors. You also have, I never know what they're called in the zero world, the zero advisor. I don't know what they're called.
Let's coin the name here.
The zeros. I don't know. But he was basically, I think, the second person in the US to be the zero ambassador. So he became a zero ambassador, but he built a cloud firm. And his cloud firm eventually, I think, got bought by HBC, which eventually got bought by Aprio. So Aprio Cloud, I think, still has some of Blake's original clients. So Blake was an old school cloud accounting CAS practice, like before most of us even knew what cloud was, right? So he built that, but he built it even before he became a CPA, which is the beauty of accounting. Right? You got a laptop, you can build and start doing bookkeeping and provide good service. And he built a customer service business. Well, we met at ExpensiCon in Hawaii in 2016. You know, you're on the beach, you're having a drink. Like, we should do a podcast together. 2 years later, we finally did a podcast together.
Jeremy, doesn't that sound like you and I in the Florida Keys?
Yeah, that does sound like, Jeremy, I have an idea. Okay. And then, what was it, 9 months later? No, really, like, let's do this idea. Like, all right, let's do it.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Last question. How many hours of CPE does a CPA need each year? You said 40 to 55. You are going for extra credit there. Correct. The standard answer is 40. And I feel like I can ask you this question, but really this bleeds into what I want to focus on for our app snack today. So bear with me while I just say, let's jump into halftime and go over this. So, as I said, for halftime today, we're going to take a bite out of Earmark. Now, the revolutionary, first of its kind app that allows us to dig into CPE credit via podcast. Like, first of all, where did this idea come from? Like, give us the history on Earmark and where it's at today.
I mean, the initial genesis is listeners of the accounting podcast. About 2 years in, we started getting a significant audience, and then people started asking if they get their CPE credits. And at that time, I was kind of starting to produce some other podcasts, and Blake went on this journey kind of with NASBA and had this, let's try to, he went out, and the result is this app that lets people listen to podcasts, right? But not really just podcasts, anything with a play button. It could be a webinar, a YouTube video. If there's your podcast, right? Anything that has a play button, we probably can turn into a course in the Earmark app, right? And listen to it. And so the genesis was driven. If people never asked, accountants never asked for CPE credit for our podcast, this would not exist. I doubt we would have just one day like, we should offer CP for, but they asked for it. And that's basically how we built it. Listening to your customer, which goes back to taking tech support calls, right? You're listening to your customers, delivering what they ask for ultimately. It's interesting though, because it's on demand. So you have to take a quiz. So you listen to this. So it's almost like being on your game show here, right? You have to listen to the podcast and answer questions about it. And you would think like, oh, people would learn less. Just listen from that. But if you really step back and objectively, and this is a learning that went off for me, if you step back and objectively look at CPE, you've gone to in-person conferences. They scan your badge at the door, you fall asleep in the chair, you get your CPE credit. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You whip out your laptop, answer some emails while someone up there talks, and then you walk out, and I don't know what they talked about, but I got work
And if
done.
you're really good, you get your badge scanned and you go out back out to the pool or whatever, right? If you're really good. I'm not a CPA. Like, I don't have ethical standards to follow. I'm just saying, do not do that if you're a CPA. But then you have live webinars. So live webinars, right? It's like an attendance button. So 3 times you have to hit a button that says, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. So what people do, they're checking their emails, they're doing their work. They just have it over here in the background on a different monitor. And they're having their admin hit the button, whatever it might be. They hit, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. And that's it. There's no like proof of knowledge. And so what the bell went off for me is you start talking to accountants that listen to podcasts and use Earmark. Like, oh, I was walking my dog. And when I'm walking my dog, I'm paying full attention. When I'm doing my laundry, I'm mowing my lawn. You really listen to the content, and then you have to take out the app and you take the quiz and you pass it. So you think about the different ways for people to get CPE. It's actually really effective. And that's part of the success, I think.
Yeah. I mean, even for those people like that want to try and just go get through the quickest possible, you still got to actually go look up information, which to your point was more than just showing up in a conference room and cranking out emails. So it's brilliant.
And you have to listen to the content. I've probably demoed the app 75 times, and I have yet to just guess 4 out of 5 questions correctly to get a CPE certificate by just guessing. You have to do the work.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I'd like to interject here as first, I feel like we can't start this with taking a bite out of Earmark without having some kind of Mike Tyson reference in there. Something to say that. I agree. Because if you're doing any of those things where any of those other examples that you just said, I could do and do work, right? And do that. But anytime if I am doing, unless the most monotonous work ever, I can't have words going on, right? So you almost force them here, right? To just take it in. And yeah, like I said, I never thought about that, but it is probably a much higher level of learning than you have with a lot of the other options. That's cool.
And then, we have 1,600 courses. Not everything's for everybody, right? And because we're bringing the cost down and making it very accessible, there's basically 1 million people, 600,000 CPAs, 650,000. You got 400,000 EAs because we do IRSC as well. Everybody's going to learn in different ways. Maybe people want a podcast that's funny. Maybe people want a webinar that's very dry and it's slide by slide talking about electric vehicles, whatever it might be. We just want people to have options and then do things on their own pace, right?
Well, I can tell you for us, it's been a game changer because that's what people want is we've heard from several friends they love the game show format, they love goofiness, and they love being able to get their CPE. So, I mean, kudos to you guys for creating the marketplace and really, like, I think kicking off an entire industry. Does another one try and copy you guys going after legal or something like that? You know, who knows? But you guys are the pioneers.
Yeah, we've talked about that, you know, how legal and doing, like, technically speaking, the app, we rebuilt the app in April. We relaunched everything. Technically speaking, we could go after all these other industries, but like we're barely, you just get distracted. Then you don't win anything. So we're just going to, you know, our hearts and our minds are with accountants. We could expand a little bit though. Maybe listeners send us an email if you think it's a good idea. So we do NASBA CPE, right? We also do IRS CE for EAs, but we're thinking like certified financial planners, CFP. That feels like enough closeness where there's some overlaps, but I wouldn't do school counselors, even though technically we probably could, but it just doesn't make sense in the app. Yeah.
Any other, like, that was a cool insight on what you guys are thinking, but any other thoughts that you guys have for future things for our wide listener base? As like spoilers for this may come up with Earmark
both
soon?
our listeners.
I mean, well, it's out there now. I talked about it on the show, but we have a community. So we're letting people jump in the community right now. It is just our podcast, the accounting podcast, it's the Earmark podcast, and then app feedback, and then just a generic discussion board. Be happy if you wanted to have a forum in there. You're on the Earmark app. We could create a forum for you to have discussions. I'd be happy to do that. We're really trying to just keep making the app easier to work with.
Yeah.
Make it faster, more reliable. You know, we're trying to add in more reliability for logging in. Unfortunately, people go fast and then they type in their email address wrong.
Yeah.
Right. They put in .com or .cmo or whatever. And obviously when we try to send them their CPE certificates, you can't get your CPE certificate if we don't have your email address. So we're going to start working on like phone number validation, right? So there's a backup way to get signed into the app. So we're trying to make it just more robust because come December, when 25% of all CPE is done in 1 month, right? And there's going to be tens of thousands of CP hours and course registrations. We just can't have thousands of users. They're like, I'm not getting my certificates, right?
Yeah.
So we have to build some redundancy and to help people successfully sign into the app. But it's a lot of it's user. People don't keep track of their email address, or they don't use it. They use the app last December. They come back this December and don't realize like, oh yeah, I signed up with my burner email address or whatever it might be. Yeah.
Brilliant. All right, well, we're on to our next game. Jeremy, I have the honors of the next one. And David, hang around for another one. You guys are going to be a team on this one, so you got to come with the answers. But we are going to play a game I call Cringe at the Fringe, where we are going to be looking at certain fringe benefits and seeing whether or not those are taxable fringe benefits or not. You guys have to come to a decision as a team on the answers. 6 questions coming at you. Here we go. Oh, and first, a disclaimer. Almost all of these benefits I'm about to list, if they are non-taxable, most of them do not have a universal requirement. But this is my disclaimer for the show. There are non-discrimination implications on all of these. So don't hear our advice on what's taxable and not and think you can discriminate employees, everyone. Okay? Just getting that out of the way.
David, have you ever prepared taxes?
Other than my own?
Yeah.
Just my own.
Okay, because like tax is not my thing either, so this is going to be interesting.
But I do have some knowledge of fringe benefits from working for Intuit because Intuit is an amazing employer. I mean, less the fiasco last week with their layoffs and bad communication about it, but Intuit always like world-class benefits. But I remember for a while they were giving out like gift cards to like a car wash once. And I was like, I don't want them because it was like, it's like by the time it was added to your pay stub and it was just another like line item, it's just extra stuff, extra noise, or you had to sign some paper so they could tax the $6 gift card you got to a car wash or something. So very familiar with like fringe benefits. Yeah.
Jeremy, don't complain about this being a tax question because the answer is taxable or non-taxable. Okay.
All right. 50-50. I'll take it.
All right. Question number 1. Employee transportation, also known as qualified transportation benefits. Is it taxable or non-taxable? What do you guys think?
It depends.
All of these are going to be, it depends. So,
because I think there's government grants, like you can provide public transportation funds to your employees and like that would not be taxable, but like, I don't know. I'm going to defer to Jeremy on this one.
I think that's taxable. I'm going to go with
taxable. Non-taxable up to $315 a month to an employee. So up to $315. If it's a ride in a commuter highway vehicle or a transit pass or qualified parking, you can pay your employees $315 a month. Now, if you think about it, if some of your clients out there are looking for a way to up an employee's wages without having to pay payroll taxes on it, or your employee having to pay taxes on it, like it's a raise you can give them to cover an expense they already have, which the rest of these are going to be, creative ways to increase that compensation, but up to $315 a month. News to anyone?
The moral of the story here is don't defer to Jeremy.
All right. Question 2, personal use of a company vehicle. Taxable or non-taxable?
Taxable. Yeah.
Yep. And this one, I feel like so many employers, particularly in the construction industry, think we're just going to buy a bunch of company trucks, have the employees take them home. It's no big deal. And they never want to report this. But I mean, this is an easy way to get dinged as a tax preparer or even bookkeeper.
I think that's the $1 billion they just recovered. Those 1,500 people with the IRS, they were getting a lot of them for personal trips on their private jets or on the business jet. Which is just a on steroids version of driving the company car.
Yeah. I mean, I would love for that to be my problem one day. My jet expenses weren't properly allocated. All right. Question 3, athletic event tickets to your family.
Ooh, I'm going taxable on that one.
I want to say taxable, but I've seen a lot of TikToks that could justify the money I spend on my family at these events.
Yeah, I know, right? So seriously, I think my social media algorithms, it knows I hate bad tax advice, because when I see legit tax people, I'm like, just scroll. I know they know what they're talking about. You find the bad ones and I end up watching them. So that's all it shows me now is bad tax advice. That being said, so if athletic event tickets are used on your family, yes, it's taxable because it's not for a work expense. However, if you are going out with a client or your coworkers, it's not taxable income to the employee. Now, yes, the employer can't write it off as a full expense because it's entertainment, but the employee does not take a taxable portion. So keep that in mind. If they say you can take your kid with you to the Broncos game, or, I was going to say the Coyotes game for you guys there in Arizona, but,
might sting a little.
Yeah.
So we have a client that purchased season tickets to a professional sporting team and uses that to take out part of their nonprofit is giving opportunities to people who may not have them. And they're like, yeah, we bought these tickets and we're using them to take our constituents out for whatever. And I'm like, whew, that's a tough one, but I think I'll let this one slide. We're going to go too, Oh man, it's a tough one.
Question 4. Business frequent flyer miles that are then converted to cash. Taxable or not to the employee?
That are converted and paid out in cash.
Converted to cash.
Oh, I got to go with taxable.
I'm arguing it's taxable. I'm arguing, though, that it's never been chased down or prosecuted.
Yeah.
How do you track this as an employer? Right? Because once those, guys are correct, it is taxable. But how does an employer monitor? Because once those Sky Miles go into my account, my employer doesn't see them. So how on earth is this tracked? But another one, valuable to know, that if it does get converted cash, taxable. If they stay as points, non-taxable. There you go.
Theoretically, you should use those points for business travel then, right?
I defer to smarter people. 2 more questions for you.
All right.
Employee discounts on your own products or services. So say you're a restaurant, you give employee discounts. Taxable or non-taxable?
I'm gonna go non in that one, but I want to see what David's got.
I'm going to say non based on years and years of buying TurboTax from Intuit at a discounted price. I don't think I was ever taxed on that discount.
So it's interesting because, David, you could get out of this with it depends if you really want to. But on services, it is up to 20% of what the retail is to the public is non-taxable. If you go beyond that, now it becomes a taxable benefit. And if it's merchandise, you have to take the gross profit margin of the business and you can't give employees beyond that. If you do, then it becomes a taxable benefit. I have one client that they have a $130 product and they were giving it to employees for $10. We had to start telling them to rein that in because it is creating a taxable event for their employees. Especially because those employees were halftime taking that product and reselling it on their own. So, last question, gentlemen. Educational assistance. Is that a taxable benefit or not?
I thought you could up to it's like 5128 for a master's and less than that. So I'm thinking not taxable, but I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember. That was 20 years ago when I got something.
I'm giving it to you. So, Jeremy, not 5128, but 5250. Pretty good,
Nice.
sir. Non-taxable up to 5250. Terms and conditions apply because, like, they can't be a high-level exec or they can't be making more than X, and then there's discrimination stuff. There's all these terms and conditions, but that being said, all these are strategies, particularly the non-taxable ones we're talking about, that if you want to increase an employee's compensation package without having to pay as much in taxes and more goes to the employee, all great ideas. And we didn't even touch on accountable plans. Sorry, I was going to say unaccountable plans. That's what we do. Which, Jeremy, we're going to have a whole separate game later of unaccountable goes accountable when we get into that. So there you go. Guys, 4 out of 6. I'm proud of you. Well done.
Pretty good. I like it. All right. Let's move right on. So I feel like we've been very legit with accounting knowledge and questions on this one with David here. So I feel like we need to put in a little bit more shenanigans, which is typically where I come in. But I have a game here that we are calling Movie Money Mysteries. So this is focusing on accounting questions for movie production or related Hollywood type events.
So just to clarify, I need some clarification. This is about production of movies, like the business side of a movie, making a movie, not an event that took place in the movie.
Correct. This
Gotcha.
is about the production and accounting of it. Great question.
I love that David asks questions. I'm just prepared to lose every time. I don't even ask anymore how I'm going to get humiliated. So this is good.
I love it. All right, let's get in the first one. So, what is the term used to describe the detailed estimate of the total cost required to produce a movie, including all phases from pre-production to post-production? All of these are multiple choice.
Okay.
So, A, box office, B, budgetary estimate, C, production budget, or D, statement of profit.
I'm guessing.
I want to say C.
Yeah, let's go with it.
C.
Yeah, that is correct. So that includes everything, right? Your production budget from actor salaries, set production, special effects, all the things, right? So heading out of the gate very well, gentlemen. Let's go to the next one. Which of the following is often considered a hidden cost in movie production? Catering services, insurance, actor bonuses, or all of the above?
I mean, school taught me always pick all the above.
Yeah, none of that was obviously as hidden, so I'm gonna say all the above as well.
Yes, well done again, gentlemen. And do you guys, have you heard some of the stories out there on some of the things like either bonuses or things that like the actors require when they're doing production on a movie for them to be there? So like, for example, they wanted to do Terminator 3, right? And you can't do that without Arnold Schwarzenegger. So he had a $30 million almost pay or play fee that even if it didn't happen, he was getting that money. But he also got like private jets and what else here? Like a special trailer.
Which was taxable.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's all taxable benefits.
That's right. He got a trailer that was just a gym, a limo, whenever he wanted to go anywhere, personal bodyguards, all of those things. And then one other good example is Tom Cruise, right? Famously does all his stunts. Well, like many other stuntmen in the industry, he prefers to wear nice velvety G-strings or thongs since it's nice and stretchy and moves with him. So when he is doing one of these high action movies, he requires the wardrobe department to stock about 50 of these just so he can jump into a fresh one whenever he wants.
Okay, so I don't know if this episode's gonna be able to go on Earmark for CPE now. Nasba's gonna have a problem with the word thong. I can see it already. Like,
We have to may have an edited version just for NASBA. Thank you, Jeremy.
Oh man, I got kicked us off. Dang it. All right, good work. Let's go into 3. What is the controversial accounting method used by studios to minimize the profits that are shared with actors and other profit participants? Cash basis accounting, net profit accounting, deferred revenue, or Hollywood accounting?
I think it's called Hollywood accounting, actually, Tyler. I think.
Okay,
it's
I'm going to
actually
defer
called
to you.
that.
Let's do it.
That is correct. Yeah, 3 for
got it.
3.
I
So,
thought Jeremy
yeah.
made that crap up.
No, I did not make that crap up. That's fantastic. So like every time a studio, from what I understand, and I'm not in the production business, but every time they start a movie, they actually make a new subsidiary to do all of the things for that picture. And when it ends up doing and making money and all of that, even if it's doing really well, they will then take some of the overhead costs of the parent company and keep pushing them down to the subsidiary that made the movie, if there is any kind of incentives that the actors have on net profit in order to minimize anyone that they're paying out in the actors or any of those things, which sounds super shady. So the example I have is Men in Black. The movie grossed $600 million and the budget was just $90 million. But even every single year, right now, it officially has a cost that goes up every year and is right now at $598 million. Or every year it's off by like 0.02% of any money that comes in. Those are the costs associated with it, which like super shady. But that's why they like all the actors and stuff now go like they want part of the gross, not the net, because of all this crazy Hollywood accounting that the studios will do.
And I think with the streaming, so Blake had a Hollywood accountant join his podcast, the Earmark podcast.
Yeah.
And at one time he worked for Netflix. And I think this is more of that shady stuff because so apparently when Netflix produces their own thing, it's not a separate entity. It kind of just goes on their balance sheet as an asset. And so that really confuses income and all that whole game. I don't know all the details. It's not my skill, but that's another strangeness when it comes to movies, right? You would think, hey, you make the movie, it has a profit and loss, but no, these movies are just assets that they own. It goes on their balance sheet.
It just like becomes like intangible assets that they can expense over time. Oh, wow. I never would have thought of it.
So if Netflix is making a movie or paying the production fees, that's really them just adding an asset to their balance sheet, which really doesn't show up on their P&L, right?
Wow. Okay.
Whole nother world, man.
Yes.
All right, next one. What is the term used to describe a percentage of a film's gross or net profits given to actors, directors, or producers as part of their compensation? A, royalties, B, gross points, C, back-end points, or D, residuals?
Ooh, this is a tough one.
I just like saying back end points because like feels like an answer in a different game, but maybe I'm wrong.
We'll go with back end points. Why not?
That is correct again.
No.
Back-end points. Which is why I had to work that into a question, right?
I know you now.
Sounds fantastic.
But all those answers sound very legit.
They do. Yeah, very legit. All right. So yeah, like for example, Keanu Reeves reportedly earned over $250 million for back-end points for the Matrix trilogy based on his negotiated deal with the studio.
That's how much Mark Sanchez earned for the butt fumble. Back-end points. Like, yeah.
Back-end points.
I love
Bringing in a football reference. Good.
That's right. All right, last one. What is the term for the costs associated with promoting and advertising a movie, which can sometimes exceed the production budget itself? A, marketing expense, B, advertising budget, C, P&A, or D, promotional costs?
D feels so obviously wrong, even though it's probably so right. I don't know, Tyler. Where's your thoughts on this?
I mean, I was going to go marketing budget because that's just what I hear, but I'll defer to you because...
What was the third one? The third one was some acronym?
P&A, which stands for prints and advertising.
Let's go with that one. We'll go C.
Oh, they knock it out. Every single one right. P&A. Yes. Be very careful how you say that. P&A is what that is. But yeah, that covers all of everything from trailers, posters, digital marketing, all of that. And made me think of, I think it's The Wolf of Wall Street, where Rob Reiner comes in as his dad and is just super mad about like $400,000 on the American Express. And they're like, no, that covers T&A. No, it covers T&E. T&E. So nice work, guys. You guys' team are perfect.
Wow.
Well done.
Wow. Well, with that sound, it is time to announce our winner of the week. And while I would argue Jeremy has an article queued up, like David, well done, sir. I mean, first of all, 6 out of 10 on Fast Figures, which we normally bat below average. So we're giving you a solid victory there, going undefeated on the last round. Well done, sir.
Thank you. Do I get a trophy? You're
going to get an unaccountable t-shirt. I'm sorry you have to wear that.
You need to add to your website like a leaderboard, and I'd like to be number one.
Oh, the idea, man. That's a good idea. It'd be everyone, all the guests, and then Tyler, and then Jeremy.
At least I'm not at the bottom. I'll take it. Jeremy, you also had our winner for the week queued up.
Yeah.
What do we got?
I mean, like I would argue us because we had David here, but one other one, high school kids. So we talked about this earlier, that the industry is so hard up for accountants that even now the accountants and accounting firms are going into high schools or any of the high school visiting days at colleges and talking to those high school students and giving them candy and all the other things to try to promote them getting into our chosen field of accounting. Get them early.
Can I please just share my screen real quick? Because the article you linked, Jeremy, is fan-friggin-tastic with the picture about celebrating these accountants coming into the high school space. So for those listeners that cannot see this, we have what looks like the stereotypical accountant, green polo, tossing the $100,000 or Hershey's or something in front of what looks like the 1990s PowerPoint. It just screams everything about, our industry trying to do the best we can to get accounts coming. But this is the future of our profession, everyone. You're welcome.
And I still contend, and I've said this before, though, like, we need to get cool firm owners like we think we are out there in the space, telling people that you don't just have to be behind the green visor doing numbers, right? Like, change the whole atmosphere. All right, with that said, let's go to our loser of the week. So SunPower, neither of us are solar experts like our friend Zach, who was also a sponsor, a presenter with us at BKX. But yeah, I've heard that story that they pretty much pieced out of the solar industry, leaving a whole bunch of people hanging with contracts for maintenance for over 2 years and whatnot. And while they're hoping that other organizations might come in and pick that up, it's also putting it on a lot of regulatory radars for the industry overall. And if it's sustainable, and other organizations in that space might be under a little more scrutiny, and probably understandably, given how they exited very quickly.
NPR Planet Money about 3 weeks ago had an episode just about the solar industry and explaining why this is happening. Essentially, the solar companies they're just banks. They're finance companies. So their the way they really make money is financing and interest rates. So for them to raise more money and get more money, you need more salespeople. So it's just they're in the loan business, not install solar panels business, essentially is the way to think about it. But go find that episode. It's really cool to listen to. This explains why, if you've ever maybe had a solar salesman come to your house, why the experience was that experience to some extent.
Oh, because it feels like predatory sales.
Yes.
100%.
And I think that's, Zach, our friend who does nothing but accounting for the solar industry, as Jeremy said, like, he refers to them as solar bros because it's like, oh, can you fog a mirror? Like, okay, you can sell solar as long as you can grease your hair back, puffed out your chest hair, and wear a gold chain. Like, you can sell solar. And that's the type of personality that shows up at your door, and then, we went through that ourselves. We got solar installed last year, and, the company that sold it to us, they didn't care about who was coming in to actually do it. They just wanted the contract and, push the financing as hard as they could. Yeah, it's an absurd industry right now.
Yeah, I had somebody, I think 2 weeks ago, come to our house too, and our house is exactly like, I think I'm going to do my directions right. It goes north and south, so there is no south-facing buildings or roof anywhere here, and I'm in Wisconsin, and I'm like, none of this is a good idea, but thank you for your time.
But that's a huge industry where you're at, David.
Yeah, I do not have solar, though. I installed water capture, though, because more valuable than electricity is water. And so there's not a drip of water that runs off my roof that does not get stored. Not one drip.
Liquid gold.
Yes.
Well, gentlemen, that is all the time we have for this week. But arguably our most important show we've ever done. David Leary, again, I can't believe you lowered your standards to come on our show. Yeah, if either of our listeners, any feedback, we'd love to hear. But thank you so much for joining us. Any last parting thoughts on where listeners should find you, what they should get involved with? Hit us with the highlights.
I'm pretty easy to find, but just either search for Accounting Podcast. You're bound to find us that way, or search for Earmark. Pretty much out there everywhere. I'm on all the socials, just at David Leary. But most of you, if you've listened to this episode, should go get the Earmark app and go take the quiz and get your CPE. That's the thing you want to do, is go get the app, find the Unaccountable Podcast in the app, and take the quiz. Oh, speaking of which, actually, this is new. We actually added functionality just for you. Well, not for you, but everybody has a channel in the app. So you have a channel in the app, and it used to be like earmark.app/16 digits of chaos. but now you're earmark.app/the @ unaccountable. You could try that in a browser. And so now you have a nice branded URL to send people to get your CPE.
Dude, done. We are putting that in the show notes every time.
Beautiful.
I thought it was going to be like the radio spectrum, where we were going to be at 107.9 and you'd have to go through the whole gambit of every single one to get there. But that sounds way more user friendly. Thank you.
/// Yeah.
Right.
underscore slash. Yeah.
Well, Jeremy, until next time, sir, enjoy the heat, and yeah, we'll catch you next time. Thanks.